Picture this. Two people, same age, same starting salary, both 25 years old. Fast forward 15 years, one of them is financially free, choosing projects they love, taking months off when they want. The other? Still stressed about bills, still wondering when things will get easier. What made the difference? It wasn't luck. It wasn't inheritance. It was 7 specific purchases made between ages 20 and 30 that completely changed the game. And here's what's wild. Most of these purchases aren't what you'd expect. We're not talking about the stuff your parents told you to buy. We're talking about strategic decisions that multiply your options instead of limiting them. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what separates people who build real wealth from those who just work harder for the same results year after year. My name is Ben. I break down the real psychology of money and wealth building. If you're serious about changing how you think about money, you're in the right place. So hit subscribe and let's get started. Now, quick disclaimer before we dive in. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing here is financial advice. What I'm sharing comes from studying wealth patterns, behavioral economics, and watching what actually works versus what sounds good in theory. These 7 purchases show up consistently in the financial timelines of people who achieve independence early. Let's break them down. 1. Buy skills, not credentials. Here's where most people get education completely backwards in their 20s. They think education means taking on massive student debt for degrees that might lead to slightly better job prospects. But the people building real wealth, they're buying skills that directly increase their earning power, usually for a fraction of the cost. I'm talking about targeted learning, a $50 course on copywriting that helps you land freelance clients, a $200 certification in digital marketing that opens consulting opportunities, books, workshops, online programs that teach you skills the market actually pays for. The shift here is from credential seeking to capability building. Think about it this way. A traditional degree might cost you $40,000 and 4 years. A focused skill-building approach might cost you $2,000 in 6 months and get you earning faster. The question isn't, will this look good on my resume? The question is, will this skill make me more valuable in the marketplace by next month? Here's the psychology. Your brain is most neuroplastic in your 20s. You can learn faster now than you'll be able to in your 40s. Use that advantage. Stack skills that complement each other. Learn sales, add negotiation skills. Know graphic design, learn basic marketing strategy. Understand coding, add product management fundamentals. Every skill you add doesn't just improve you incrementally, it multiplies your potential, because rare combinations are valuable. Someone who's good at data analysis and good at communication, that's rarer and more valuable than being great at just one. The practical approach: dedicate 5 to 10% of your income to skill acquisition. Track what you learn and how it affects your earning potential. Treat it like an investment portfolio, because that's exactly what it is. And here's the kicker. Skills compound. That copywriting course you take at 24 doesn't just help you at 24, it helps you at 34, 44, 54. You're building intellectual capital that appreciates over decades. 2. Buy time through automation. This one sounds counterintuitive, but it's one of the most powerful wealth-building tools available to you right now. Automate your wealth building so your future self doesn't have to rely on discipline. Open a brokerage account, set up automatic transfers from your checking account to index funds. Make it happen before you see the money, before you can spend it, before your brain even registers it as available. Here's why this matters psychologically. Willpower is a finite resource. If you're relying on discipline to invest every month, you'll fail eventually. Life gets chaotic, expensive expectants pop up, you'll tell yourself, I'll invest double next month, and then next month never comes. But automation doesn't get tired. It doesn't have a bad day. It doesn't rationalize skipping a month. Let's talk numbers for a second. If you automate $300 per month into a broad market index fund starting at age 23, assuming historical market returns around 10% annually, you're looking at roughly $1.3 million by age 65. Wait 10 years to start that same habit, you'll have about $500,000 instead. That decade of delay cost you $800,000. That's the mathematics of compound interest meeting the psychology of automation. The specific purchase here isn't just buy stocks, It's buying the system that removes your emotions from the equation. You're purchasing a mechanism that builds wealth regardless of how you feel about the market on any given Tuesday. Set it up once, let it run for decades. Check in periodically, but don't tinker. The boring, automated approach beats the exciting, active approach almost every single time. And here's the secondary benefit nobody talks about. Once it's automated, you stop thinking about it. That mental energy gets freed up for other opportunities. You're not constantly debating, should I invest this month or buy that thing? The decision's already made. 3. Buy mobility. Now this one might surprise you, but strategically buying travel experiences in your 20s can be one of the highest ROI investments you make. I noticed I said strategically. I'm not advocating blowing your savings on luxury vacations to flex on social media. I'm talking about buying exposure to different ways of thinking, different markets, different opportunities. Here's what happens when you travel smart in your 20s. You build location-independent skills. You discover that work can happen from anywhere. You meet people building businesses in ways you didn't know were possible. You realize your local market isn't the only market. I've watched people stumble into business ideas, partnerships, and career pivots because they bought a $600 plane ticket to a city where their industry was thriving. The tactical approach: use travel rewards strategically. Get a solid travel credit card, use it for normal expenses you'd have anyway, pay it off completely every month, and accumulate points. Never pay interest, but leverage the reward system. This does two things simultaneously. You build excellent credit, which becomes valuable for future investments, and you fund travel experiences that expand your perspective without depleting cash reserves. But here's the deeper psychological value. When you navigate unfamiliar environments, solve problems in foreign contexts, and build confidence operating outside your comfort zone, you're training yourself for entrepreneurship and risk-taking. People who never leave their hometown tend to think locally. People who figured out how to thrive in Bangkok, Berlin, or Buenos Aires tend to think globally. That mindset shift opens opportunities you wouldn't have even recognized otherwise. Plus, your 20s are when you have maximum freedom and minimum obligations. No mortgage, probably no kids, fewer family responsibilities. Take advantage of that mobility while you have it. The goal isn't tourism. The goal is buying optionality, learning that you can operate effectively in different contexts, which makes you valuable in ways that people who've never left their bubble simply aren't. Number 4, buy leverage. Now this one intimidates people, but it's also where wealth accelerates faster than almost anything else: real estate. Now before you think, I can barely afford groceries, how am I supposed to buy property? Hear me out on the psychology and strategy here. Real estate works because of leverage. You can control a $300,000 asset with a $15,000 down payment. That asset appreciates while someone else, tenants, pays down your mortgage. You're using other people's money to build equity. But the real genius move in your 20s is house hacking. Buy a duplex, live in one unit, rent the other. Or buy a 3-bedroom house, rent out 2 rooms. Your housing cost drops to near zero or potentially even becomes income while you build equity in an appreciating asset. Let's walk through the psychology of why this matters. Your biggest expense in your 20s is almost always housing. If you can neutralize that expense while simultaneously building wealth, you've just freed up massive cash flow for other investments. People who house hack effectively in their 20s often save $1,500 to $18,000 a year compared to renting. That's $12,000 to $18,000 a year that can go towards building additional income streams. And here's what compounds. That first property becomes the down payment for the second. The equity you build becomes leverage for the next investment. You're not just buying one property, you're buying entry into a system that can scale. Now, real estate isn't passive. It requires work, problem solving, dealing with tenants, and maintenance. But that's actually a feature, not a bug, because it forces you to develop business skills that translate everywhere. You learn negotiation through buying property. You learn management through dealing with tenants. You learn systems thinking through maintenance and operations. These skills make you more capable across every area of business. The biggest psychological barrier is fear. What if something breaks? What if tenants don't pay? What if the market crashes? Here's the reframe. What if you spend your entire 20s paying someone else's mortgage instead of building your own equity? That's guaranteed to cost you.
Property investment might have risks, but not investing definitely has costs. Start small, house hack, learn the game, build from there.
5. Buy efficiency, not status. Let's talk about the single biggest financial mistake people make in their 20s, buying cars they can't afford to impress people they don't like. Here's the brutal truth about vehicles. They are not investments. They're depreciating assets that cost you money every single day you own them. The average car payment in developed countries is around $500 to $700 per month for 5 to 7 years. That's $30,000 to $50,000 spent on something that loses value the moment you drive it away. Now imagine taking that same $500 per month and investing it instead. Over 30 years at 8% returns, that becomes over $700,000. So the real cost of a fancy car in your 20s isn't the sticker price. It's the $1 million you didn't build by age 55. The smart play? Buy reliable transportation for $8,000 to $12,000 cash. A 4 to 6-year-old Honda, Toyota, Mazda, something boring that runs forever. Insure it cheaply. Maintain it properly. Drive it until the wheels fall off. This isn't about being cheap. This is about being strategic with your most powerful wealth-building tool, time. Here's the psychology shift. People buy expensive cars because they think it signals success. But actual successful people, the ones with real wealth, often drive modest vehicles because they understand opportunity cost. When you're not making car payments, you have freedom. Freedom to leave jobs you hate. Freedom to start businesses. Freedom to invest in opportunities when they appear. Freedom is worth infinitely more than impressing strangers at stoplights. Plus, here's what nobody tells you. The stress of car payments affects your risk tolerance everywhere else. When you've got a $600 monthly payment hanging over your head, you make conservative career choices. You stay in safe jobs. You don't take swings. Eliminate the payment, and suddenly you can afford to take career risks that might 10x your income. Buy the boring car, invest the difference. Thank yourself in 15 years. 6. Buy health infrastructure. This is the purchase people ignore because the consequences don't show up immediately. But your health in your 20s determines your capacity to execute on everything else. I'm not talking about expensive gym memberships you won't use. I'm talking about building the infrastructure that supports sustainable high performance. Quality food instead of surviving on energy drinks and takeout. Consistent sleep instead of glorifying the hustle of 4-hour nights. Some form of regular movement that doesn't feel like punishment. Here's why this matters from a wealth-building perspective. Your energy and cognitive function directly affect your earning potential. If you're exhausted, stressed, and running on fumes, you can't perform at the level required to build significant wealth. You miss opportunities because you don't have the energy to pursue them. You make poor decisions because your brain isn't functioning optimally. But when you're well-rested, properly fueled, and physically capable, you can work harder, think clearer, and sustain effort over the decades required to build real wealth. Think about health spending as performance enhancement, not luxury. You're buying the capacity to execute on your other investments. The person with the side hustle who can work an extra focused 2 hours each evening because they're not depleted, they build wealth faster than the person who crashes on the couch because they're nutritionally bankrupt. And here's the compound effect. Good health habits in your 20s set patterns for life. Bad habits in your 20s become exponentially harder to break in your 30s and 40s. The practical approach: spend a bit more on quality food. Protect your sleep like it's sacred. Find movement you actually enjoy so you'll sustain it. These aren't costs, they're investments in your most important asset, you. 7. Buy strategic relationships. The final purchase that changes everything. Investing in relationships and communities that elevate your thinking. This might mean paying to join a mastermind group, buying tickets to conferences in your industry, investing in coaching or mentorship, joining communities where people are building what you want to build. Here's what most people miss. Your network determines your net worth, but not in the sleazy collect business cards way, in the your peer group shapes your standards and opportunities way. If everyone around you thinks $50,000 a year is great money, that becomes your ceiling. If everyone around you is building 6- and 7-figure businesses, that becomes normal. You literally cannot outperform your environment long term. Your standards automatically calibrate to the people around you. So the smartest investment you can make is buying access to people who are where you want to be, not to use them, but to normalize higher standards. This might mean paying $2,000 for a mastermind when you're making $40,000 a year. That feels scary. But if that mastermind introduces you to one partnership that adds $20,000 to your annual income, it just paid for itself 10x over. The psychology here is crucial. Free communities attract people at your current level. Paid communities attract people who are invested in growth. The barrier to entry filters for seriousness. And beyond just business opportunities, the right communities accelerate your learning curve. You avoid mistakes by learning from people who've already made them. You spot opportunities earlier because you're exposed to different perspectives. Invest in relationships intentionally. Pay to be in rooms where you're the least successful person there. Learn from people ahead of you. Your network is the only asset that appreciates purely through giving. The more value you provide to high-quality people, the more valuable your network becomes. Look, here's the reality. Your 20s are going to pass whether you make smart financial moves or not. 10 years from now, you'll either look back grateful that you made strategic purchases that compounded into freedom, or you'll wish you had. These 7 purchases aren't really about money. They're about building the kind of life where you have actual choices, where you wake up and decide what you want to do, not what you have to do. Start with 1. Pick the purchase that makes the most sense for where you are right now. Build momentum. Let it compound. The people who win financially aren't smarter or luckier. They just made different purchases earlier. Make yours count. If this changed how you think about money in your 20s, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which purchase you're starting with. I read every single one. See you in the next one.